Colonel Rob Manus has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Manus is a true American hero. This is Rob Manus Live.
One communist on the faculty of one university is one communist too many. One communist among the American advisors at Yalta was one communist too many. And even if there were only one communist in the State Department, even if there were only one communist in the State Department, that would still be one communist too many.
Welcome back to the Rob Manus Show. We're live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. Well, it's Whistleblower Wednesday, and today's title cuts straight to the bone. The Marxist-Islamist Revolution is in your face. One communist is one too many. It's not theoretical anymore, folks. It's here. It's bold, it's public, and it's accelerating. In New York City, the communist mayor is pushing government-run grocery stores paid for by you, the taxpayer. Private operators are going to get stuck with the mess while prices get controlled into the ground and drive them out of business. History has shown us this movie before. Empty shelves, failed experiments, and freedom crushed under the boot of the state. Worse, Mondami's people are outright doxing private property owners, publishing names and addresses of nearly 1 million New Yorkers who might face his new taxes. That's not governing, people. That's a Bolshevik hit list. We've seen the movie before. Capital flees hostile environments, folks. What made New York and America great was capitalism, not this communist seizure of power. And a potential Democrat presidential contender is openly arguing we should make it harder for families to pass on the wealth that they earn to their families. Call it what it is. It's communism. This morning brings another warning shot. Abdul El-Sayed has won the Democrat Senate primary in Michigan. He's a progressive darling. Bernie and AOC-backed. Medicare-for-All. Abolish ICE. Long ties to the Democratic Socialists of America. While he's claiming he's not a socialist, one more Marxist-leaning voice advancing toward the U.S. Senate, folks. One is already one too many. And we're joined once again by my friend, longtime TV news producer, former diplomat and anchor at Talk Radio WABC in New York, Jake Novak. Jake, I know I messed it up, but that's what I do around here. Let's get exposing this revolution before it owns the whole damn country.
Yeah, I think it's really important for all of us to understand. This is like a Sun Tzu type of piece of wisdom. We have to be very careful about how we're going to address and debate and push back against these communists. So if you're a professor, if you're a teacher in a school, and you want to teach people about the economic failures of communism and socialism and teach Economics 101, please do. Lord knows we've had a lot of years where we weren't doing that in our schools from K through 12 and universities and beyond. But understand that is a waste of time when we're debating a Mamdani or an El-Sayed or a Bernie Sanders or someone else like that, because they aren't interested. It's not like they believe that their economic model will work. They don't really believe that.
Right.
And it's not what they're even tapping into. They're not tapping into people who are desperate for economic equality. What they're tapping into and what they want is resentment, violence, anger, and destruction. We can define communism by all the things that it isn't, It isn't good for the economy. It isn't good for this. It isn't good for that. But what a waste of time that is. Let's define it for what it's been very successful at doing, which is destruction, violence, upheaval, the stoking of resentment. I keep telling people that when Mamdani sends a letter to people saying, prove to us you don't owe us money, which, by the way, is contradicts a basic principle of Western law, which is if you're extracting money from someone, the burden of proof is on you, not them. Even the IRS.
Yeah.
Even the IRS has to prove in documents that you owe them money before they can tell a court that you owe them money. So don't tell me the IRS doesn't have to do that, because they do. They may not do it well, but they do it. All right, folks, this is the whole point. That's what he's trying to do. He's trying to frighten, anger, destroy, stoke the resentment. He's already succeeding in his goal. You can say, oh, well, those grocery stores are going to fail, and boy, is he going to be upset. No, he won't. He doesn't care about that. He's caring about busting up that merchant class, whether it's low-level merchants or high-level merchants. Hurting them is the goal. That's the goal. That's the end. That's not, a little icing on the cake for people who hate rich people or successful people. So please understand, and by the way, people who should know better, like Bill Ackman, the billionaire, pretty smart guy, he's still arguing on Twitter today about the economic results. What a waste of his time. Bill, just come out and say, this guy's trying to kill us. He wants blood in the streets. He wants destruction. And now let's discuss it on those terms.
Oh, yeah. Why are smart people denying what's happening, Jake? That's one of the questions I wanted to ask you. You've got your finger on the pulse of this country, coming from New York City, and spending time there, understanding the baseline there. But your radio shows reach out nationally and internationally and everything. So you're hearing from people all the time. Why are people, especially so-called smart people like Ackman, they're in denial?
Yeah, well, for the most part, it speaks well of them. People who are inherently good, or at least want better results, have a very hard time looking across the aisle at someone, especially in their own country. This is very true of people in other countries too, but especially in their own country, they have a hard time looking across at them and saying, this guy is really not good. It's not like he has a different idea on how to make things better. This is a person who wants to destroy. This is not someone worth engaging with or trying to win over. It's very hard for good people to understand that. We've seen that so many times in American history, especially after 9/11. I think that there were some good people who wanted to think, well, was there some justification for this? Let's try to find out. And it's hard for them to understand another human being in this world who would want to kill themselves so that they could kill thousands of others. But I got news for you, and I'm sorry to have to tell you this, and I know it's a horrible thing to realize, and you don't have to ruminate on it all the time, but you must understand that there are people like this. There are people who don't want to build. There are people who want to destroy. And we've been told about this in our culture and in our history since the beginning of time, and it's hard to understand. I know we can't swallow it. It's one of the reasons, Colonel, why I believe that the biblical story of Cain and Abel is the most important biblical story for people to understand now. It tells us about a person who only seeks to destroy, not to better himself, not to get a leg up on something, but just to destroy for destruction's sake. And the writers of the Bible, whether you think that's God or some other wise people, doesn't matter, understood that this was a human trait that some people have, sadly. And the sooner you recognize it, the better you can handle it. So the answer to your question is, you can be really, really smart, but if you have a good heart, it's possible you won't recognize the evil in others until it's too late. So here I am to tell you, don't feel guilty for calling these people out for what they are and to realizing it. We can be sad about it later. We'll have a drink about it later and cry in the beer. But understand this is who it is, and it doesn't make you a bad person to recognize that.
Yeah, absolutely right. Well, we've already got questions in the audience, so I want to go ahead and take a question before we get to the break. Go ahead, Shell.
We have Cat the Hammer, sir.
Hey, guys, this might be jumping ahead, and you can save this for later if you want, but I'm going to ask it kind of point blank. We've seen so many different things happen where we thought we were kind of on the hairy edge of possible violence in the streets. I kind of feel like this might be the one. Do you guys feel that this could result in maybe pockets of violence? I'm not advocating for it. I'm just asking a question. And if you want to save it for later, Colonel, I totally get it. I kind of jumped ahead, but I just wanted to get that in there.
Well, I'm glad you went there now, actually. No, that's exactly. I think we should get to that discussion now. Now, first of all, we're seeing it already. We've seen pockets of violence so many times, whether it's the latest looks like assassination attempt on President Trump that we found out about yesterday, even though they arrested the guy, I guess, on Sunday, whether it's individual incidents of these anti-Semitic violent incidents. I keep telling everybody, it's got nothing to do with the Jews. Stop talking about it as if this is targeted to Jewish behavior or Israel. It's just nonsense. It's, again, the means are the end. These are people who want to commit acts of violence. It's not because of politics or because they're trying to achieve a political goal. It's like they're getting off on the violence itself. That's what it is. So we're seeing it on a smaller scale. What we haven't seen yet, thank God, is some kind of organized militia-like large-scale force coming in to do like what they used to do, like when Cossacks used to ride into cities and trash the city or something like that. Could we get there? Antifa has been volunteering for that role for a long time. They would love to be the ones to do it. But we haven't had a full coordination of that yet, thank God. And that might also be because we've had some good law enforcement. I mean, even under the Biden administration, there were some people doing their jobs trying to stop this kind of stuff. Now we have a little bit more coordination now. But what I'm not seeing is a large militia-type group of people pre-planning something. But believe me, I got my eyes open for it, and I can't tell you exactly where I think it would happen first, but we shall see. We shall see.
Yeah. And I would also add that, look, you know, what we've seen this already, the BLM Summer of Love is part of this Marxist movement by Black Lives Matter's founders' own admission. That's what they were trained as. And this is, it's an intentional ideological destruction of society, and their preferred method actually is violence. But it takes them a while in a country like this. I think it's taking a while to build up to that because of the way we're constructed, and they haven't been able to indoctrinate all the kids yet. You know, so that would be.
Take a look at the water you just poured. It looks clean. It tastes fine. But what's really in it? Lead, fluoride, arsenic, chlorine, pesticides, PFAS forever chemicals, pharmaceutical residues, and bacteria. Every single day, these toxins flow straight from your tap into your glass, into your family. It's time for Sentry H2O from Worldview Water. Sentry H2O is the ultimate water treatment technology, designed to remove harmful toxins, balance your water's pH, and enrich it with essential minerals like calcium and magnesium, the way nature intended. From commercial-scale systems to whole-house filtration to crisp, delicious drinking water right at your kitchen sink and shower, Sentry H2O delivers cleaner, healthier water everywhere you need it. No plumber, no tools, no plumbing knowledge required. Perfect for homes, apartments, rentals, RVs, refrigerators, and more. Because everyone deserves access to clean, healthy water. Visit worldviewwater.net. That's worldviewwater.net.
The Mamdani markets are official, and they're a bad deal. $70 million taxpayer dollars up front for 5 stores. And so what do you get for that? Well, 30% discounts on a small list of goods. Aldi already beats that. Walmart already beats that. And so the city is spending $70 million to lose to competitors that already exist for free. And keep in mind, this is before a single day of operating costs is accounted for. You still have staff, inventory, maintenance. None of that 30% discount pays for itself. And for what? A narrow selection of basic goods. You don't have a pharmacy, there's no deli counter, you don't have a bakery. And so what New Yorkers are really getting in reality are higher costs with smaller discounts with fewer options without any services. It's a textbook example of a bloated, bureaucratic government requiring more to give you less. What actually makes this worse is that New York already has a program that does this the right way. It's called Fresh, and it offers zoning bonuses and tax breaks for private grocers to build in underserved communities. In fact, since 2009, 30 stores have opened through this program using $177 million. And it didn't even come from the taxpayers. It came from private investment. It created 1,400 jobs, and 0 public dollars were spent on construction. And so why doesn't Mamdani just do that? Because fresh doesn't get him what he actually wants. In his own words, he said he wants a store focused on keeping prices low, not making a profit. That only works if a government owns it. And that's why he keeps saying food desert, because that's the only way he can justify this. Because framing it that way makes it sound like there's no other option. Except for this simple fact. There's reportedly 45 grocery stores within a 35-minute walk of the site he picked. The desert isn't real. The math was never the point, and it's not really about the savings. It's about government control, government ownership of these facilities. It's really about socialism.
Welcome back to the Rob Maida Show. It's Whistleblower Wednesday, and my guest is Jake Novak, the host of the shows on WABC Talk Radio out of New York City. And Jake, yeah, I like that little clip there. I hadn't seen that before and didn't know about the Fresh program until very recently. But it reminds me of good government policies that I've supported in the past as a political candidate, as a citizen, and those kind of things. And it's really not that hard to do. That would be a policy the Democrats would once support when they were supposedly in support of the working people.
Yeah, you're not going to believe this when I tell you this, but the greatest moment, in my opinion, of Michelle Obama's public life, you can look this up on your Google or whatever search engine you want to use. About 15 years ago, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more, she wrote an editorial in the Wall Street Journal explaining that Walmart is basically the #1 grocer in this country for a lot of people in the country. And Walmart should be welcomed into these urban areas that truly are food deserts, because they will bring clean, reliable, lower cost groceries in places where they don't have them. No one remembers that. That's not what they put her in vogue for. Oh my God, if Anna Wintour found out she wrote about promoting Walmart, she would have pretended she doesn't know her. That is the solution. Yeah. New York City and cities like it ban Walmart in urban areas. This is a horrible, horrible policy which has left people really in trouble. And as that video happens to say, despite that, the areas where they're putting these markets are indeed actually not food deserts, especially some of them in places that you might not think. They've actually opened more than just little bodegas, but nice grocery stores. But I love that video too. But as you may have figured out from what I said in the first segment, until he comes to his conclusion saying, no, this is really about government control. You know what? That would be bad enough, but that's not what it's about. It's about the resentment, the anger. You know, let's talk about the original communists for a second, the Bolsheviks in the 1917 revolution and the whole thing there. Let's talk about that just for 1 second, because if all they really wanted was government control, then when they had the Tsar and his family imprisoned to show government control and government power, they would have dragged out that whole process and they would have put him on trial, maybe the Tsarina on trial, and they would have shown the world how horrible they were, made their case for how they're going to be better, and shown that government control by the proletariat works. But they didn't do that, did they? They killed the Tsar. They killed his wife. They killed his children. They killed his nieces and his nephews, because that was the point all along. Violence. Basically sanctioned, allowed violence, where you can go and kill, maim, and destroy. That is what communism not only taps into. It's not just their means to the end. It is the end. And until people understand that, they're wasting their time. So great video. And at the end of what that guy should say is that when all those other businesses go out of business and owners abandon their property and they end up setting them on fire like they did in the Bronx in the 70s, that's the New York that these communists want, not government control. They want chaos that's allowed by the government. There's a difference.
Yeah, my one argument with his video is he ended it with that it's socialism. It's really not. It's communism, folks. And like you keep saying, rightfully, communism is focused on violence. And the effects of that violence cleans out whole populations, generations of families, those kind of things. And not just royal families either, right, Jake? I mean, these systems have killed entire long lines of generational families just to eliminate them, because they might have believed, for instance, in China, that China was great once under the original concept of the emperor and when it was originally created and everything. And they want to wipe all that out. But it's the violence itself that's what's important to them.
Yeah, I mean, just like, and the French Revolution in many ways was like that also. Not officially called communism, but
Right.
very much the MO of communism. And all the original leaders of the French Revolution died too. It was about a bloodletting, and it was about that kind of mass violence. You know, I just talked about the high point for Michelle Obama. The low point was for Thomas Jefferson, where he basically said, this kind of bloodletting's good. It's good for society every once in a while. He was dead wrong about that. That's not good for anything. It only shows you that resentful people can sometimes get what they want, and then it leads you to absolutely nothing. What does that blood get you? It doesn't get you anything in the end. It doesn't get you the things that made you angry, reverse the things that made you angry in the first place. Any movement that's based on that kind of resentment, that's based on that kind of needling of people who you see are successful. You know, Mayor Mamdani, right after he gets elected, makes this snarky video where he's staring into a camera and pointing at a penthouse and knocks on the camera lens like it's a door and saying, hello, we're going to bother you. That's, again, to him, that was, I'm sure he would very much got physically aroused by that video, because that's, by the way, that's what we see. That's what has a lot to do with rape and things like that. They're not sexually attracted to the rape victim. They are sexually aroused by the violence itself. And I get the feeling that's the kind of person we're dealing with here. He's certainly trying to tap into that. It's resentment. It's not jealousy. Jealousy can lead to good things, actually. I don't think it always does, but it can. Resentment only leads to destruction. And if you hear somebody stoking the flames of resentment, understand they're trying to stoke violence, not equality or justice.
Yeah, you know, one of the things that really concerns me about this particular brand of communism that we're seeing take a foothold here, and it's got a foothold, folks. You cannot deny it anymore. Look, 5 congressional candidates on the Democrat side that are DSA and Islamists all won their primaries against entrenched incumbents for Congress. So, and then you have the Senate candidate there in Michigan that won his primary. It is the concern I have with it is the combination of the two, because they're both violent ideologies. I understand that people want to call Islam a religion, but it's really a violent government governing ideology. You have to adhere to Sharia law. Even if you're not a fundamentalist, you're expected to adhere to Sharia law, no matter what sect you're in the Muslim so-called religion, that ideology. And when you combine that with pure communism, like this Mamdani guy, man, he frightens me, Jake, because he comes across so gentle and kind, like Barack Obama did. But he was raised by an Islamist. He's an Islamist himself, and he's a communist.
Yeah, he also represents, we've been talking about communism and Islamism. He also represents this unholy union that I was happy to see. We haven't had all the greatest developments in the world come out of the Middle East over the last 50 years. But one of the things we did see is the end of the communist influence in the Arab world. There was that whole point where they really pushed secular type of Islamism with communism. Now, it was replaced by religious Islamism in Iran and with the Muslim Brotherhood. But the secular Islamist kind of stuff that was combined with communism, basically because of a lot of Soviet influence, did die out. But here we have it here in this country again with people like Zohar Mamdani. I don't think he's a very devout Muslim, but he is very much into the ethnicity of his Islamic background. He likes to talk about that. And, of course, he's into the communism. What he's into, of course, is, again, the resentment and the beatdown. One of the reasons why communism previously has never been successful in this country is, again, because resentment is such a vital ingredient of communism succeeding among people. And it was hard to stoke resentment in this country where, with all of our faults and all of the problems, it's the largest large population country in the world with the best wealth distribution and standard of living for a large population. So it's hard to really stoke resentment. But here are the two new factors, relatively new factors in our society that have given resentment a new foothold, because you're talking about footholds. One is we have this large percentage of relatively wealthy people who grew up in wealthy homes, like Mamdani and other people like that, who have graduated from school with basically degrees that don't matter. They can't really get a high-paying job, and the chances of them perpetuating their family's wealth on their own in the private sector is zero. And they really resent their classmates, people that they saw either who were always rich or became rich while they were in school doing well. So that's one group. And they've got a lot of money behind them still from their families. And they know how to speak. They know how to be articulate. They know how to look like they're friendly and kind, like Mamdani. The other factor is social media, which I think is still generally a positive force. I think, but it's close because it amplifies the angriest voices and makes problems seem much bigger than they really are. And that's a great fertile ground for resentment. If you have one person who's not doing well in society, who's willing to be really loud on social media, 10 times louder than people who outnumber him by a lot, then it helps the resentment framework. It really does. So those two factors are fueling this. Now, luckily, we're only seeing it in some pockets of the, notice it's only happening in these urban areas, very rare. And I mean, it didn't work so well in Maine. They're trying it there. I don't think it's going to work there. But honestly, it's an overblown situation, but it's still scary to me because we used to be resentment proof in this country compared to other countries. And now that we have this influx of a new part of the population, I'm not even talking about illegal immigrants right now or even legal immigrants, just this new Gen Z, wealthier kids, upper middle class kids who have now reached their 30s, not feeling like they're relevant. That's a really, sadly, those are ingredients for spreading resentment across the country, and they have.
Oh, absolutely, and that's why one of the talking points in the policy they're using is the endless war policy approach that those on the right and the left in this country have teamed up together before and advocated for. I'm one of the military guys that said we need to end it, which is why I ran for office in the first place and supported Donald Trump. But young people are being convinced by, like this Sayed guy that just won the Democrat nomination for Senate in Michigan. He is using the same talking points that J.D. Vance used, that I've used, and building that resentment because the president is trying to not get into an endless war, but use our military force to end a war, the one in Iran, that's directly aimed at us, and working with our allies like Israel and our Gulf state allies that have all been attacked. These guys are using it. That's why they go after the AIPAC talking point and Israel as the government talking point, and the Jews and those kind of things, because they're linking all that together into this attack on the endless war policy, which is not an invalid attack, but it's an invalid for them to be using it because they don't care about that. They're using that strictly as another point to divide the population.
Yeah. It's really been scary. It's been a sad commentary that for 60, 70 years, the failed societies of the Arab world, Egypt, Syria, Yemen, have been able to get away with not doing anything better for their people, not improving their economies by blaming it all on Israel. And that's bad enough. My goodness, we now have people like Sayed saying things like that, basically saying, hey, if you aren't getting great health care, if you can't pay your bills, if you're not getting a good education, that's Israel's fault. And he's really saying, because we're spending so much money on them, which of course we're not. I mean, I can play the numbers game. But again, then I would be going against what I've been saying throughout this entire program, which is arguing the merits with these people is a waste of time. What I would say to somebody like that would immediately confront them saying, I'm not going to bother with your stupid argument. That's not really what you were talking about here. You're trying to stoke resentment, create violence on the streets to destroy our society, not to create an equality or get, quote unquote, that money back. That's not what you're trying to do. Don't worry. I see through that. I'm not going to let you have fun with that. So isn't it scary that some of the most pathetic third world MO that there is, blaming Israel or another country for the fact that you're failing your own people, is working, even if it's working with a small number of Americans? This is not something that would have flown a couple of years ago. And it's not because the economy's worse. It's not because our quality of life is worse. That's not true. It's because we have this group of people who are, no matter how good their situation might be or bad, they're intent on resentment and this kind of stuff. And they've got a voice.
Yeah, and that idea has been transplanted from places like Saudi Arabia and Pakistan and Iran, but mainly Saudi Arabia. And Egypt are the two big ones that I blamed for that idea, and it's been transplanted right into here, Jake. We got to take another break. When we come back, I want to get your take on the grocery store and let you describe exactly what's going to happen with these, so people that don't understand it will have a good understanding of what's going to happen with these government grocery stores. I'll be right back with Jake Novak.
At a certain age, you stop chasing younger. You start protecting what helps you feel steady, strong, and well. Your body's collagen matters. It supports the structure of your skin, joints, and connective tissue. But as the years go by, your body needs more support from the inside. That's where Bella Grace Elixir comes in. Bella Grace Elixir combines Verisol collagen, the world's most clinically proven collagen, with asteryl astaxanthin and cat's claw in a proprietary blend designed to help support the processes that reconstruct collagen, while also offering antioxidant and anti-inflammatory effects. And this isn't just for women. It's for men and women who want to age with more confidence, more care, and a daily wellness routine that supports the body from within. One simple elixir, thoughtfully formulated for whole body wellness. Take care of the body that has carried you this far. Order Bella Grace Elixir today at melissahousebg.com.
So voters are getting what they asked for in New York City, where Socialist Mayor Zohran Mamdani is doxing the taxpayers who contribute the most to the Big Apple. So the database released by the city's Department of Finance allows users to search properties and view the names and addresses of owners whose residences could be subject to Mamdani's proposed tax on New York's most affluent property owners. The list includes major celebrities, top business leaders. This is dangerous in giving out this information. TW, what do you make of this?
Yeah, this is what socialists do as they slowly move into communism, Charlotte. This is what happens when the state starts seizing property, which is exactly what Zohran's agenda is. And again, if you look at Zohran Mamdani, why he's so threatening, not only is he articulate and he makes it all sound really cool, the problem is it's an unholy alliance between the jihadists and the communists. That is the base of Zohran's support, and it's spreading throughout New York. But the problem with that is capital is a coward. It will not flow to a hostile environment. What made New York great is what made America great. It's capitalism, it's the Constitution, and it's Christianity. We better get back to that, or we won't have a New York City, and we won't have a country.
Yeah, and if this tax on non-primary homes worth more than $1 million is what he wants to do, if I can afford a non-primary home worth more than $1 million, I can afford to move. All right.
Welcome back to the Rob Maida Show. It's Whistleblower Wednesday, and we are talking with Jake Novak, who hosts a radio show out of WABC in New York City. It has a very, very good understanding of what's going on with this. Jake, I just wanted you to take us through what's going to happen with these grocery stores. What's the evolution that will happen, and what impact will it have on private grocery store owners and operators?
Different stages that we're going to see with these grocery stores. So first of all, when the first one opens on day one, the Mamdani administration and team will make sure that the line, especially the beginning of the line, is packed with nice-looking, enthusiastic people who will be smiling at the camera and praising him. They'll make sure of that. But as the days go on, the majority of, first of all, they're going to have to show ID, which of course a number of people have pointed out the hypocrisy there and gotten chuckle about that, and that's fine. Yeah. But as the day goes on, most of the people in line will be wearing COVID masks. I promise you that, so that they cannot really be identified. That's an MO of street people in New York. They're going to buy as many of the cheapest products there as they can. Whatever they're going to have to start rationing it, but whatever the number is, the maximum they will buy. So those items will run out real fast. And of course, a lot of those people will keep one or two of those items to themselves and sell on the street for a higher price, or even a lower price. Whatever, they'll sell for a higher price on the street. That's what happened with food stamps in New York for years until they put it on a debit card, when it was actually just like a paper money type thing. You would go on the street and you would sell these free food stamps that you got that were $10 and $5 each for a few pennies on the dollar and get some cash. My friend Charles Payne, who's a big host on Fox Business, you've seen him. He talks about that all the time. When he was a young person, he bought food stamps like that because it stretched his food dollar back in the 80s, early 80s. But that aside, that we're going to see that. By the time a few days pass, we're going to see a lot of the shelves empty in these stores. Then the city's going to have to increase the rationing even more. And they're going to put it down to only one item or so so that they can't buy it up and move it out. And meanwhile, the other local groceries that are all people have this image in their mind that every other place to get food in the neighborhood is going to be some bodega with rancid food that's really, really expensive, no real produce. No, there are real groceries. There are real nice open air fruit and vegetable markets all over the city like that. They're going to start seeing they're going to see not just fewer customers because they're going to the free store, but people aren't going to want to be in that area. It's going to be not a great place to be. You're not going to want to hang out in that area and go to a restaurant there, certainly not live there. And it's going to really destroy the whole feel of those areas, which are very much up and coming. Some of these areas, I know it's hard for non-New Yorkers to understand this, but there are parts of the Bronx and in Harlem, especially that are just much nicer than they were even 10 years ago, let alone 20 years ago. So that's what's going to happen. And you're going to see these stores basically almost with empty shelves pretty quickly. Not on day one. Day one's going to be this big PR day. They're going to sack the lines with people who really aren't, real. They're going to be pretending to be poor New Yorkers who are finally getting a break from their savior, Mayor Mamdani. But after that, you're going to see the real people who are going to take advantage of this, and it's not going to be pretty.
Yeah, and when people try to go to the grocery store after it's been cleaned out, you're going to see the same pictures that you used to see out of the Soviet Union, where you got long lines because the other grocery store owners will probably go out of business and leave, and the tax base will leave. So you'll have long lines and very little food to choose from, and that'll be the way it runs unless somebody steps in and changes it.
That will not bring embarrassment or sadness to Mayor Mamdani and his supporters. That will bring a big smile to their faces. They're looking for spreading the pain. Misery loves company. These people are miserable, not for any tangible reasons. They're miserable people, and they want to spread that pain and misery around. So they won't be embarrassed by this. They won't. You won't score any points on them when you point out that this is happening. It's very much what they're looking for. That's the goal.
And it's the seed. Widens the seed for the whole resentment thing, which ultimately leads to violence at some point or another. Well, we got some questions in the audience. I want to let them give them a chance to ask you some questions. Go ahead, Joe.
We have Matt, sir.
Hey, Shell, thanks for the mic. Jake, I've got to wonder, aren't we also going to see, amongst other things, after day one, aren't we also going to see people who get these government goods at these government grocery stores turn around and resell them? And aren't we also going to see a decline in new grocery stores not opening because of government-run grocery stores, especially if Mamdani decides for whatever reason to do more of them?
Yeah, I was giving too many facts at once, so you missed it when I said that. That's exactly right. They're going to buy whatever the maximum is allowed of the lowest cost items in those grocery stores and then turn around and sell them for the regular market price. Yes, that is absolutely going to happen. I bunched that with too many other things. So yes, you're right. Of course. Well, this is what your second part of your question is something that I like to say all the time. This is one of my big pillars. I'm thinking about putting a chapter about this in a book, but I think maybe I should write an entire book about it. And here's my paradigm. We've been told since we were young, even by good people, that poverty is a big driver of crime. Poor people who just can't get ahead. We're not excusing it, but that's a big driver of crime. Well, that's wrong. It's backwards. Crime causes poverty. It causes generational poverty. There are still neighborhoods in New York, including one where I spent my teenage years, that have still not recovered economically from the crime wave that hit New York in the late 50s and early 60s. That particular neighborhood I'm talking about is Far Rockaway, Queens. I moved to there in 1981. Amazing people, but I think I went to the downtown of Far Rockaway in the 7 years I lived there before college one time because it was devastated by that small period in history. But it's now been over 60 years and it's still suffering from this. The rise of looking at people waiting on basically bread lines, and God knows what else is going to happen, is going to discourage any business for generations not to go to that area. After so many years of waiting, they finally have these business people coming back. Some of them are national businesses like franchises, like Starbucks and stuff, but some of them are other mid-level merchants. They are not coming back after they see this. And it will take another generation, if not more, to bring them back, creating the poverty. So this crime against the natural law of things, capitalism, the right to for freedom and for businesses to move on, which I believe is a crime if you abrogate it, if you hold back on that, will create generational poverty in these areas that have finally just recovered from 2 generations of poverty. So you're absolutely right about both of those points.
Yeah, the crime and poverty issue, Jake, when these areas, it really takes hold again in them, and I agree with you. I spent a week in New York City in 2006, and it was amazing because they were still living off of the Giuliani regime's successes, and every area was amazing that we went to. We couldn't find any really scary areas, but that when those two things take hold again in these areas, it's very, very difficult to get rid of them. And I think that's one of the things that we see with the black family in America, is because bad policy has led to crime, which leads to poverty, and it's a never-ending cycle. It's like a closed wheel that keeps generating its own issue over and over again.
Yeah, I keep saying this. Yes, it's true that black men are 5 times more likely to be arrested for a crime. Okay. But black people are 11 to 12 times more likely to be a victim of a crime. Mm-hmm. What kind of sick maniac worries more about column A than column B? Well, not me. I'm more worried about column B. The fact that they are victimized by it. These people who think, again, the stoking of resentment, who think they're hurting the rich, who think they're going to stick it to Whitey. I got news for you. Whitey isn't going to be the one who gets stuck in the street. It's going to be other poor black minorities, who, especially black people, but other minorities. That's who's going to get it. And I don't even have to guess. That's what's been true for over a century in this country. Poor people are more likely to be attacked when crime is stoked. So if you let people out of the prisons, you're not scaring the people on Park Avenue. Believe me, they got good security. I can't remember the last time. I've never seen even a panhandler, let alone a mugger, walking by the fancy buildings on Park Avenue. Believe me, the doormen have a thing going. They know what they're doing. Little inside news.
Absolutely. So to get back to the opening clip of the segment, the list of property owners, I called it a Bolshevik type operation, because that's essentially what they did in the Russian Revolution. Was eventually they published all the landowners and corporate owners of all the profit-making industry and property there, and the masses went after them. This is really troubling that this happened in the United States of America.
And again, it's just for the resentment. It's not for any belief in any kind of equality. It's not like they're dreaming of this happy utopian society where everyone gets along. They're dreaming of the blood in the streets. They're dreaming of the people being confronted with it while they sit in an outdoor restaurant and being spat on by somebody on the street at an outdoor cafe. That's the dream. And until people get that, you get that. But, people like Bill Ackman and other good people in the city who, believe me, I really like what he's trying to do. But he needs to understand who he's dealing with. This is a basic Sun Tzu thing, right? They don't understand their enemy's goals or nature. And that is lethal. It's lethal. It's like coming into a football game thinking you're playing a baseball game. It's a different game. It's different. And again, I would respect Mamdani. He doesn't have to use racial epithets. He doesn't have to use threatening language. He can just say what I've been saying, which is, Mayor Mamdani, we know what you're trying to do. You're trying to stoke resentment, create violence, and destroy this city. So I'm no longer going to argue economic principles with you. I'm only going to argue public safety. Ladies and gentlemen, I, Bill Ackman, say that this mayor is a threat to public safety. He's already succeeded in endangering the city. He must be removed now. And if the governor doesn't remove him, then she needs to be removed herself. This should be the only issue in the gubernatorial election in New York this year. And hopefully in the next guy, I didn't think this was going to happen, but now, based on that list you talked about, I feel like in the last couple of weeks, there's a better chance that Bruce Blakeman, who's running for governor in New York as a Republican, and some of the other folks in New York, other than my colleague at WABC, Sid Rosenberg, who's the host of the biggest morning show in the city, he's been saying this. I think more people are going to come out and say that, but I think they can say it in a way even more effectively than radio guys like us. And I'll be happy to write the script for you. But that's the script that needs to be brought to the American people.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think he's within 3 points of the latest polling, Blakeman is. And I didn't know that the New York governor could essentially fire the mayor of New York City. That's a fantastic law.
That's right.
If you get somebody with the guts to implement it. Well, let me take this last break. When we come back, we'll see a clip. And I want to talk about the cloaked communist policies that these people sell and convince average Americans that it's a good idea. We'll be right back with Jake Novak, and you'll see one on the way back in.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work. Try to see a doctor this week or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home, went to bed.
Right? Whenever we figure out a way to make sure you can't hide all of your wealth or all of your income from being fairly taxed, very wealthy people will figure out some other place to hide it.
Yeah.
And then we'll have to develop a new policy to deal with that. But I guess my point is that's okay. Too often we have just hesitated to do anything, refused to do anything because it might be hard or because it might not last.
Yeah.
But if the idea that somebody will figure out a way around this law meant that you shouldn't have the law, that would be an argument against having any law. So it's messy. It's hard. But I am sure that if we had a more reasonable rate of taxation on capital gains and on corporate income, and if we made it harder to pass along wealth without, especially inherited wealth, without paying any taxes on it, or some of these other maneuvers like this borrowing thing you're talking about, we would have a fairer country because we'd still have capitalism. There'd still be lots of motivation and lots of reason to innovate and build a business and create jobs and do all the things that very wealthy people have done. And also, we would be out of this doom loop we're in where they're saying, well, we can't possibly have as good health care as other countries. We couldn't possibly do something like, I don't know, fast trains here in the United States. We couldn't possibly have rural hospitals be properly funded or public education. Of course we can. This is the wealthiest economy in the world. It just doesn't add up that we can't have nice things. But if we aren't collecting a fair level of taxes, then of course we're going to come up short when we're trying to fund those things. And the biggest thing of all, that numerically that we're facing right now is this massive debt.
Welcome back to Whistleblower Wednesday here on the Rob Maness Show. We're live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. My guest today is WABC radio host, the man, the myth, the legendary WABC radio host out of New York City, Jake Novak. Jake, that little session there is Pete Buttigieg, if you guys didn't know who that was, who is a high potential presidential candidate for the United States of America in 2028. I don't care what people say about him. He is high potential. And he's learned to talk about a communist policy in a way that's very much akin to the way Obama talked about Obamacare.
Yeah.
To sell it to the American people. But the bottom line is he wants to go after the ability to pass your generational wealth along to your family. And that's how Americans have become prosperous over generation.
Yeah. Once again, I want everyone to understand that debating economic policy, even with a Pete Buttigieg, is probably a waste of time because I don't believe he's looking for a real solution. He's trying to start playing the resentment game too. Oh, we're not getting nice things because we're not taxing the rich enough. That's a signal, a flare he's sending up, hoping to also stoke those flames of resentment. He's not looking for a better world. He's hoping to get angry voters to the polls. And then if a little violence comes from it and a little bit of even more resentment, because resentment breeds more resentment, then so be it. But just for the sake of argument, so that people can go back to your families and people who aren't running for office and don't mean us harm, you can have a little discussion. I'm going to keep it very simple for everyone. You learned this in 5th grade, I hope. If you didn't, learn it now. The price of an item is set by the law of supply and demand. So if something is too expensive, the answer about making it cheaper is not to have the government pay for it for you. The answer is to either reduce demand somehow, tell people that taking aspirin is bad for you or whatever, or you increase supply. You want to increase supply? Well, some people say, well, it'll cost tax dollars to increase supply. Well, it won't be efficient if you use tax dollars to increase supply. If you get out of the way of the barriers to entry, then it won't cost you tax dollars, and the private industry, people who want to make money on it, will increase supply. We have reduced supply of healthcare in this country, both through things like looking at insurance. We're giving people insurance so they can have this long line at your doctor's office instead of actually increasing the number of doctors. And hospitals have consolidated in this country at a rate like no other sector of the economy. More than the banks, more than telecoms, more than the streaming services, hospitals consolidate. So
because of government interference, because of government healthcare.
That's right. We've reduced supply in this country. And that's the reason why it's getting more expensive. Not because the rich are getting richer. There's new millionaires being coined in this country every single day. Something like 12,000 a day I saw in the Wall Street Journal a couple months ago. So we're really, that's not the problem. It's because the government is the problem and your solution is government. I mean, in the lead up to Obamacare, all we heard was how horrible the health insurance companies were. They were bashed for months. And then their solution was, wait for it, more insurance. I mean, it's just insane. It's insane. Yeah. And the reason why this insanity continues is because of what we've been talking about this entire program. It's not about the solution. It's about stoking resentment, especially in a midterm election when people are not paying as much attention as a presidential election year. It's harder to get them out to the polls. You are very, very much relying on angry, resentful people coming out to vote in the hopes of getting even with someone, maybe even punching someone in the nose. So that's why you're seeing this. Now, that's going to continue if this works in other places. And that's really what's going on. But again, just for your own economic discussions in your own family or maybe a larger circle, please feel free to discuss the economics of this. But that's a waste of time when you're facing the actual leaders of these movements because they are not interested in learning or being told what economic policy is. They're not interested in economics at all. They're interested in hate and resentment and eventually violence.
Because it allows them to spend more government money, gain more power, and keep the man down, keep the people down, really, is what the resentment and violence enables all that stuff to do. I mean, listening to Buttigieg's list, all the things he talked about are caused by government involvement in too much government involvement, and the American people voted for it because they got sold that bill of goods. Pay attention, folks. Well, let's take a question from the audience before we get to the end here. Go ahead, Shel.
We have truth wins, sir.
Hey, thanks. You guys are covering a lot of ground. I think the simplicity of the question would be, okay, so now what? What can we do to help, for one, raise awareness, and for two, do something legally about this? Obviously, there is the Communist Control Act of 1954 regarding communism, but the horrifying evil marriage between communism and Islamism is a scary combination. I personally, to sum up, to answer that question, like you referred to Sun Tzu, I try to understand the enemy. I've read through the Communist Manifesto, the one line out of the manifesto that sums it up to me and would really keep people from ever wanting communism is where it says there are, besides eternal truths, such as freedom, justice, etc., that are common to all states of society. But communism abolishes eternal truths. It abolishes all religion and all morality instead of constituting them on a new basis.
Yeah, thanks.
It therefore acts in contradiction to all past historical experience.
Yeah, thanks for your question.
The answer to your question is, what can we do? So I think that it's a two-pronged thing. It has to do with message, and it has to do with geography. So the message I've already articulated before the last break, which is very simply, go make it clear. We're not dealing with an economic philosophy here. We're dealing with people who mean us harm and destroy the city. Mayor Mamdani is a danger to public safety. Abdul El-Sayed is a danger to public safety. He wants violence. But then geography. This guy the Republican who's going to run against El-Sayed, better spend most of his time on the ground in black neighborhoods and basically say, this guy isn't looking to raise you up. Most of you didn't vote for him in the primary, by the way. Mm-hmm. He's looking to represent the rich, snobby white kids and some Islamists in Dearborn, not you. And believe me, whatever benefits you're hoping to get from the government or benefits you're hoping to, or more opportunities from private sector is not in his wheelhouse. He's not interested in that at all. He's interested in resentment and all those other things. And I know you haven't voted for a Republican before, but give it a chance, because this guy is just as much your enemy as he is the white Republicans who you think are the bad guys here. You might enjoy if you think they're going to get attacked, but they're not really going to feel it. So it's message and it's location. Bruce Blakeman in New York, who's doing, I think, actually a very good job. He's getting a lot of criticism from the backbencher people who think they know better all the time. But yeah, I think he should spend more time in black and Latino neighborhoods across the city. I think the black and Latino communities in New York, especially the black community, is pretty much wise to Mamdani. And again, if he can get 5, 6, 7 more % of those voters for him, especially here in New York City, then he will win the election. So it's all about where you can get the best bang for your buck. And I don't think it's going to in just making videos. I think he needs to start to walk the streets, and I urge him to read the writings and the messages of the very great late Jack Kemp, who was really the last Republican to do that very effectively and consistently. And his message always was, don't fear the voters. If you fear the voters, then you shouldn't be running. You shouldn't be running.
Absolutely right, Jake. Absolutely right, man. It's the other thing I would add is you don't have to vote for the other side. The other side is claiming this. Look, just today, the Democrats boycotted a hearing on the on CARE, the Council on American and Islamic Relations, which is a designated terrorist group here in the States by the state of Texas, for instance. And we're looking at them very hard to be designated here by the federal government. And the federal government has designated CARE and the Muslim Brotherhood in other parts of the world as terrorist groups. You don't have to vote for them. You don't have to buy into these very slick messages that try to sow resentment in order to get you to vote for them. You just have to believe in America one more time and go take a look at the founding document. It's the 250th anniversary. Read it to yourself and your families as you have the discussions about to go vote, man. What's your take on this whole walkout on the Muslim Brotherhood committee meeting and CARE and all that before we get to the end of this thing?
Yeah, this is they think that they're in Selma, Alabama, doing some kind of civil rights moment here, and they feel that it's racist to go after this organization. And not going after the organization because they're a Muslim organization. They're going after this organization because they were found in a legal case in America that was upheld by all the courts, including by some Democrat-appointed judges, to have been fundamentally helping in the funding of Hamas and other terrorist groups overseas. Yep. Finished. End of story. That would be true if they were the most secular people in the world, if they were Jewish, Christian, and they happened to be Muslim. And we can have another discussion about the higher propensity of Muslim terrorism. But that's not the point here. The point here is that this organization, this particular organization, whether it was CARE or an elephant, is helping to support, has been convicted of helping to support terrorism in the past. And they should be treated as such. You mentioned Texas. I know Florida's done the same thing. And should be really mostly important to be mentioned that Muslim Arab countries like the United Arab Emirates, and I think also Kuwait and maybe a few other countries, have also designated CARE as a terrorist organization. So are you going to say they're anti-Arab, they're anti-Muslim? So save your save that virtue signaling and that that pantomime for someone else. Try that with someone else. We're smarter than that.
Well, thank you, Jake. I appreciate it. Great show, man. Follow him at JakeNY on X. And, of course, catch the show, WABC Radio out in New York City. It's fantastic. We appreciate you, man. All right, tomorrow's Truth Thursday. We're turning back to Weaponization Watch. Got a really tragic case where somebody was trying to do good, that's a medical doctor, and operate within the system well, and got turned on its head, and now he's, I believe, going to jail. We'll see you then on the Worldview Tube Network.